I made this design a couple of days ago in Photoshop, and since then I've had a few people asking for a tutorial, so I'll do a step-by-step right now, show you exactly how I made this. If you're watching this on TikTok, this is going to be a little bit of a longer video, so you might want to get yourself a cup of coffee, turn your phone sideways, and plug in, and let's just jump right into it. This is the image that we're going to recreate right now. It's really simple. It only uses a couple of images, and it uses gradient maps, and then just a few texture brushes to knock out the texture in the background and some smart objects. This shouldn't take long at all to recreate. So what we're going to do first is create our canvas, and we're just going to make a new file here, and we're going to change this to inches. And then this one is about 13 inches by 19 inches, and then our resolution is going to be 300 pixels per inch. And this is going to pretty much push my heat press size-wise to the max. So this is about as big as I want to make something. And I like a really big print on a shirt. I'm going to start here, and then we're just going to fill in this background color. And this is the blue that I use. And when I'm doing my colors, I don't like to use hex codes. I like to go in there either with hue, saturation, and brightness, or with cyan, magenta, yellow, and key, CMYK, these hue and saturation sliders. But we'll switch to CMYK. And this is the value of this is 100% cyan, 92% magenta, 30% yellow, and 21% black. Once I have my color to fill that in, I'm just going to go to Edit, Fill, Foreground Color, Normal, 100%. Okay, and that's my blue. And the reason why I like to use these sliders instead of relying on hex codes is, one, you can see basically how things are going to print. And this would be my shirt color, so I'm not worried about how it's going to print. But I can fine-tune all my adjustments. And as long as I know what I'm doing with these colors and I'm practicing, it makes it really easy to change things. The hue, saturation, brightness sliders are my favorite, because then I can darken things up. I can change the saturation. I can change the hue this way. And it's a little more intuitive, I would think, than the CMYK sliders. But for now, we'll just keep it on these ones because it's not going to make that much of a difference. So the first thing I want to do here is get my first picture. And I can either do the background or the foreground. It doesn't matter. I usually start with the foreground just so I can start laying things out and see how they're going to look on the finished page. So on an image like this where there's really nice contrast, I'm just going to select my magic wand tool here, and then at the top this contextual menu changes. Select subject comes up. We're going to do that by cloud, and then we're just going to click select subject, and Photoshop is going to select this. Now if there's anything that it doesn't get, I can go back in with the lasso. Like here, this area, it selected this, it didn't select part of this, so I can go with my lasso tool. I'm going to hold down shift, and that's going to change it to plus. And then if I put my finger on the alt key, I can release the shift and it stays in the plus, but now it turns into this sort of polygon tool here, this lasso, and I can just kind of stitch through here like that. And it's not a perfectly round selection like you would get if you're drawing it by hand. I can use my drawing tablet to do that, but this is fine for this example. And then on this one, I want to subtract, so I'm going to hold down the alt key, and it's going to turn my lasso into subtract from selection. And once I start drawing, I keep my finger on the mouse, or if I'm using my drawing tablet, I keep the pen to the tablet, and I release the alt key. And then when I push it again, it switches to this tool where I can just kind of stitch through this. And we'll just go through here real quick so you don't have to see me make this whole selection. All right, so once I have this selected the way that I want, I'm just going to make a copy of this. And I could have gone through here to the filter gallery or to the filters and used the neural filters and made an enlargement that way before I did anything else. But this will be fine for what we're doing now. So what I'm going to do here is just copy this. So Control C, Command C if you're on Mac, or Edit Copy. Then I'm going to go to this file that I made, and I'm going to just paste that right in. And you'll see this is kind of small, so I can just resize that. Photoshop does a pretty good job of resizing things now. I could have gone in, like I said, with the neural filter I used in app like Upscale to upscale it, but this will work just fine. All right, so the next thing we had was the stadium in the background. And I'm just going to copy that. So select all, and that's going to select my entire canvas. And then the same thing, I'm just going to copy Control C on Windows, Command C on Mac, or Edit Copy. go back to the artboard I'm working on, and then I want to make sure that I have this new layer below the layer that I just made. So I'll start by selecting the background and then paste that in. So Control V or Command V if you're on Mac, or edit, paste. And same thing, this is kind of small, but I'm just going to really blow this up as big as I want. I kind of like the idea of having the city in the background and you can see the stadium. What we're going to end up doing with this is getting rid of most of this detail anyways, and it's just going to be a texture for our design to sit on top of. So I'm going to hide the top layer with Kike Hernandez on it, and we're going to go to this layer that I just made. And what I'm going to do here is go into this area where it says layer 2, right click, and then we're going to turn this into a smart object. Now the idea of turning this into a smart object is that all of the edits we make are going to be non-destructive. So I can play with this until it's exactly how I want it. If I go too far, then I can just delete the adjustments that I made and start over. First thing we're going to do is desaturate this. So what I'm going to do here is go Image, Adjustments, Hue Saturation, or Control U, Command U if you're on Mac, to get all the saturation here. And then the next thing I'm going to do is a levels adjustment. So Image Adjustment Levels, or Control L, Command L. And we're going to take this white point slider and slide it all the way to the left here, or about halfway. And then we're going to take this black point one and slide it over here. And then we can use this sort of middle tone one to see exactly how we want it. I'm going to click OK, and then I'm going to change this mode to multiply. So now we have just basically what's going to turn into a texture. I don't want this to be perfectly square at the sides. So what I'm going to do is go in with some texture brushes. And this is a texture pack that I actually made myself. You can buy it in my Etsy store. And it's called Cracked, Crushed, Destroyed. And this just basically has some pre-made overlays, and it has a whole bunch of texture brushes. We're going to go back to our smart object layer, and we're going to make a mask here. So if you look at your layers, select that smart object, and then come down here to this mask icon, click that, and now we have a mask. And anything that we color on the mask layer in black going to disappear from our image here. But it's just a mask, so we can get rid of that at any point. And then we're going to go to our brushes. And I have this folder that has all of those brushes, and there's a bunch to choose from. So you can just go through and see what the different brushes look like. I usually start with some of these grunge brushes, make them as big as you can. Well, not as big as you can, but make them pretty big. And then make sure we're in that mask with black selected as our foreground color and the brush mode set to normal. And then I'll zoom in so you can see what's going on. You just start kind of stamping around with those. So anywhere where there was black, it's now clear or invisible. So what we'll do is we'll just kind of go around the edges here with different brushes and hopefully knock back some of that look so it's not quite as square on the edges. And there's different ones. Some are shaped like cracks. Some are just general grunginess. But I just go through there with my brush set to 100 and just start knocking out some of those details on the edges. And then once we have that done, then we're going to make halftones. So this is just one solid color that's going to print really nice. And we can put as much of this texture anywhere we want in the picture. We're not limited to just the edges, and we can change the sizes of these brushes. We're just going to kind of beat this up. So we have this old, just like I said, it's basically going to just be a texture for our design to sit on top of. We don't really want it to compete with our design too much. Once we have that, we'll start working on the photo here. On top of that, we'll leave this for now, and we can make any adjustments before we commit to our final halftone. For this, what I did was I made a gradient map, and that's why these colors look the way that they do. And we'll make the gradient map with this layer selected with the picture of Kike. What we're going to do is go to this kind of circle icon. I don't know what the exact image is supposed to be. It kind of looks like a yin and a yang, but not really. And then we're going to make a gradient map, which is here. Now, when we make our gradient map, it's going to default to foreground and background colors here, which doesn't matter. We're going to change that. And as it is, it's affecting anything that's sitting below it. So what I want to do is right click on that, make a clipping mask. And now it's just going to clip itself to the image directly below it. And then from there, if I double click on this little gradient icon, it brings up my properties, and then I can start making adjustments. So anything on the left is going to affect the darkest colors. Anything on the right is going to affect white and any of the lighter colors. And then obviously between those are your midtones. What we want to do first is just change this. We'll make this white for now. And you see now with this being blue and this being white, we're getting a pretty basic monochromatic image here. When I double click on the slider, it brings up my color picker, and we're going to start with not black, but a pretty dark color. And what I want to do is kind of find my way from a very like cool purplish blue to a little bit of a warmer blue. And we're going to start with the dark color here. Click OK. And this one was more of a yellowish color, kind of a sort of creamy yellow. Click OK. And a lot of this, you're going to have to experiment and sort of get the feel for this tool. When you click on one of these sliders, the next time you click in one of these open areas, it's going to copy that same exact color. So if I want to work with my blues, I'm going to click on this darker blue, then click around here somewhere, and then I can either double click that slider or click this color, and it pulls this up. I want to just pull this down just a tiny bit. Everything to the left is less saturated, which means gray. Everything to the right is a more saturated color, brighter, more vibrant. Some of those won't print quite as well. And then everything at the top is lighter. Everything at the bottom is darker. So we're just going to lighten this guy up a little bit. Click OK. And then I had one over here that was going to affect his skin tone a little bit. So that one. I also went with sort of an orangish color. And we can move these wherever we want. We can slide this a little bit more towards the red because that was a little bit too yellow. We can move this guy over a little bit. We can see what tone looks good in the middle. Okay. And this could probably be better, but we'll stop right here because we can always go back and edit. Click OK. And then what I want to do here is turn this guy into a smart object too. So come over in this area, right click, convert to smart object. And now what I want to do is I'm going to desaturate this, turn to grayscale. And that was the same thing. Control U for hue, saturation, brightness. Command U if you're on Mac. Image adjustment, hue, saturation, brightness. And then same thing, we're going to go in with the levels adjustment. And this is going to bring out different colors in our gradient map. And a lot of this stuff, I don't like to give a set of value for most of these things, because every photo is going to be different. The lighting on every photo is going to be different. And a lot of it just kind of comes down to your own sensibilities and doing something that looks good to you. So let's look at our original image, and let me look at this gradient map here. This actually is much better. So I'm going to actually save this just so I can refer to it. But let's go back to that gradient map. So we added color here, and then a little bit of a warmer color over here. And you have to really be sort of conscious of the values. This blue is way too light for its position in this gradient map. So we're going to have to darken that guy up. We want the darkest to the left, and then it should be gradually lighter going towards the right. So try this. See if we can make this guy a little bit darker. We could shift this a little more towards the red. And a lot of this is just sort of going back and forth and playing with the values of things. And this will be good enough for now. I'll save that. I could punch in this other one that I used just to see the difference. I like this one, but I think they're both okay. And again, we can go back. This is the whole point of those smart filters, is I can go back, double click this levels adjustment, and I can make more adjustments. So one thing that I should have done is I should have made a copy of this photo before I got started. But what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to make a copy of it now, get rid of these smart filters, and then I'm going to right click over here and rasterize this layer. And the reason for that is once you make a smart object and you make a copy of it, they're both linked. So if I made any adjustments to the image inside of this one, it would affect the other one. And I want this to be independent. So what I'm going to do here is convert this back to a smart object, and then I'm going to desaturate that. So Command U, Control U, hue saturation, and then we're going to make a levels adjustment. But what I want to do is change the blending mode of that too. So let's make a quick levels adjustment and see what we get. And this is going to be a halftone layer. So what I want to do is just basically get this thing super contrasty so I can make my halftone We're going to turn this to a multiply layer. We can turn this on and off just to see. So everything that's black is going to be black, and then everything that's lighter than black on here on this layer is going to turn into a dot pattern. So we have this, and then we have type, which I'll save for last, and we'll start making our halftones here. So one thing would be smart to do here is go to my history, save this history state by toggling on this little box right here with the paintbrush, and that just allows me to go right to this point in this document in case I mess anything up and need to go backwards. And it's always a good idea to save as you go. We're going to go back to this halftone layer that we're working on. We're going to rasterize that. So right click over here, come down to rasterize layer, and now we're going to turn this back into a smart object, which isn't super intuitive, but basically I've committed all of my edits, and now I want to make my halftone in a file that's still attached to this document, so I don't have to open a new document, do all that, copy it, bring it back. What I'm going to do here is double click on the thumbnail for that layer, and this is going to bring me to my black and white document. This is the smart object, so I'm going to change the mode of this to grayscale. I'm going to discard. Then we're going to change the mode of this to bitmap, flatten layers. Okay. 300 pixels per inch is the size of our original document. And then the method here is halftone screen. Click OK. I want a chunky halftone, so I'm going to try about 20 lines per inch. And I always have this at 22.5, but it doesn't really matter for this type of printing. And then the shape is going to be an ellipse. You can also do lines, but I like the look of the ellipse, so we're going to click OK. And these are our halftone dots, so you'll see this is just a bunch of dots, but as you zoom out, it looks like something that's printed. Back in the days, you'd see a lot of newsprint, things like this. And we're going to change this mode to grayscale. Okay. Then I'm going to select everything that's black. So I'm going to use my magic wand tool here, W on my keyboard, and I want this magic wand. There's different ones under here, but I just want the magic wand tool, not the object selection or the quick selection. Want to make sure anti-alias is off. I want to make sure contiguous is off. And we're just going to click on some of the black here. And that's going to select everything black on the page. And then what I want to do here is layer via copy. So if I go to layer, new, layer via copy, or Control J on Windows, Command J on Mac, and to make a new layer with just that black. And then I can drag this background layer into the trash on the layers palette. We'll save this smart object file, and then when we close that, we have halftones in our original image. Now I don't want black halftones. So one thing I can do here is go to Effects, Color Overlay, click on this little color swatch here, and then I could sample this background color here, and then I might make it just a little bit darker here. I can even make this a little bit of a cooler blue, and this will do for now. And then we're going to do the same thing here for this background. So what I'm going to do is right click, this is the background layer, right click over here next to where it says layer 2, rasterize that layer. That commits all of my edits. Then we're going to convert this back into a smart object, and that's going to apply the mask to the image here. Double click on the thumbnail, and then the same thing. We're going to turn this to grayscale, discard the color information, turn that into a bitmap, flatten layers, okay, 300 pixels per inch. And then if I want, I could make this an even fatter halftone to give it even more texture here in the background. And then we'll turn this into a grayscale, okay, use the magic wand tool, select anything black. We're gonna do our layer via copy, Control J, Command J. Then we're gonna just drag that background layer into the trash. We're gonna save this, and then we're gonna close it. And we could turn this back to normal, and our gradient map's still affecting it. So what I'm gonna do here is got to remake that clipping mask. I don't know what happened, but we lost our clipping mask for this. Just gonna click over here, right click in this area and create clipping mask. The keyboard command for that is Alt Control G. So now this is only affecting this image right here. And one more time, we want to go into this layer with the background. We're going to rasterize that layer. We really don't even have to rasterize it at this point, but we will add a color overlay. And the same thing, we're just going to click here and then make this whatever color we think looks good. You can start with your background color and just work your way down and maybe less saturated. And now we are ready to start adding some of our type. And we had some type in the background, which I'm going to start. I'm just going to actually turn off all of these layers for now so we can see what we're doing. I'm going to use my type tool here. I press T on my keyboard, or we can go here to the type tool, and we just want the regular horizontal type tool. And the typeface we used, for this was called Amador. We're going to make sure we have that selected. And this is a quote from a post-game interview. When you're using these like black letter style of fonts, you want to make sure that you're not going all caps because it doesn't look right. That says the. If I did it all caps, it makes it really hard to read. And I can do like title case, or you can do like paragraph style where just the first letters capitalized. It doesn't really matter. That's another thing that's up to you. All right, so we're going to make this white. We are going to scale this down a little bit. Then we start turning our layers back on. This is our background layer, and then what I want to do is take that layer that I just made and drag it down so it's only above the background layer. So when I start turning on layers, it's in front of that. The next thing I want to do here is I can change the opacity, or actually that's what I'm going to do is I'll change the opacity here, which this isn't really a great thing when you're printing to change the opacity. So we'll also change this to a screen mode. And then we'll make this like a blue color. Here you just change the blending mode. So you select your layer, come here, and these are your different blending modes. We go on screen blending mode. And then with the type tool selected, we're just going to click on that swatch. We'll make this like a blue color, like a very bright blue. And I could turn this into a halftone too. For now, this is good enough. All right, so now we're going to turn this guy back on. We're going to turn our gradient map back on and our halftone layer back on. See, I think we had his last name here. And the typeface for that was Bourbon. So I'm just going to click down here. I'll paste that back in. And this isn't what I want because look I made this right beneath that gradient map layer. So let's get rid of that whole thing. Start over and we'll go to our top layer and we'll put our type in there. We're just going to center that. So with this type selected, if I have the move tool up here selected, I can select all, and then my contextual menu up here shows alignment, and I can just center that. And with the type tool, I want to make sure that I have this also center aligned. Once you have the move tool, if you click on one of these corners here, it's going to open a bigger bounding box. Don't just start dragging. You click and then it opens that bigger one. Then I'm going to hold down Alt and drag, which is going to resize this from the center. And then we added some layer effects to this. With this type selected, we're going to click on effects. We can go to stroke. We're going to add a red stroke here. And the best red is 100% magenta, 100% yellow. Based on these colors that I'm picking, I don't want a true red. I want sort of like an orange red and a little bit desaturated. And then we're just going to up the size of this stroke and change the position to center. And what that's going to do, it's going to draw the stroke from the edge of the letter and an equal amount in and out. So you'll see if this is the center, half of the stroke is inside the letter, half of the stroke is outside of the letter. My blend mode is set to screen here. So that's why you're seeing through these letters. So I'm just going to change my blend mode back to normal. Click OK. We're going to knock that stroke. Actually, we're going to make this an outside stroke. And we're going to knock that size down a little bit. About 24 looks okay to me. We're going to add another stroke. So you can just click this plus and it's going to add the same exact stroke. We're going to make this one white. And the way we do that is we click on this color. We'll drag this over the top left corner for white. Click OK. We're going to make this one a center stroke or an inside stroke. We'll make this an inside stroke. And it's only going to be about 18. And maybe I got these backwards. Let me see what our original looked like. No, that was right. Okay. So once we have this, if this looks good, what I'm going to do is open my styles palette here, click this plus, and this is going to save this style. So I'm going to click OK. And now I can just use this exact style again. So then we had at the top, it said Dodgers and the same typeface. So we're on Bourbon regular. I'm going to center that, make this bigger. And then we're just going to apply that style to it. And okay, there's one more thing I need to do here to make this style complete, because what it's doing is it's taking all the layer effects, but I didn't add a color overlay. Adding a color overlay here changes everything. Let me double click on my effects, pick color overlay, click on this swatch, and then I'm just going to sample a color from his shirt. Click OK, OK, and then I can make that a style. So when I select this Dodgers here, this layer, and instead of going through and selecting just the layers, I can use my type tool, click into that type. And then when I push escape, I'm already on that layer. We're going to use that style. We're going to select the entire canvas with that type layer selected. We're going to center it. We're going to bring it down, make it a little bit smaller. We can take this type and move it down a little bit. All right, so we'll take this type at the top that says Dodgers. What we're going to do is we're going to select this with the type tool. Then we're going to do the distort, warp text, arc lower, and then we're going to put that into the negative just so we have this little arch look at the bottom. And then I think I want to make this bigger. All right, so we're going to use bourbon one more time, but we're going to make the type pretty small this time. I'm just going to type out my text here. Use my move tool, move this up above, make this smaller. So we're going to click in here, make sure we have the text centered. Go back to the move tool, select all, make sure that it's centered to the artboard. And then we're going to go into our type menu, our type palette, and we're going to change the tracking on this. So that's what this one is, where it shows a V and an A and these left and right arrows. This is the tracking. We're just going to track that out so it's like at the edges of our letters. Click OK, push enter to make sure we commit it. And then we're going to just change the color of that. So we're going to have this type selected. We're going to click the color of the type on the swatch. I'm going to sample this background color, and then I'm just going to make it a little bit lighter. I don't want to make it fully white. I just want it to be sort of a lighter blue color so it doesn't really compete with anything, but it's there. We're going to make sure this is centered. And then the last thing to do is put his name here. So I'm just going to copy that because I don't feel like going through and finding the accent mark. And this is the same typeface. It's Amador. So get my type tool. I'm just going to paste that in. And then we're going to move this over here. I can resize this if I want. And the same thing, I'm going to go into my layer effects. We'll add a stroke. This time we're going to add this same color stroke as this outline here. We're going to do it on the outside. And I'm doing mine at about 16. And then we're going to add one more stroke that is actually the same color as the background. So click on that swatch, sample the background color, and then we'll make this one a little bit bigger. And that's just going to knock out any color around it to the background color. We can do it that way, or we can just leave it on the top. And this is our original. This is the new version that we just made, and I don't know what happened to our letters here. When you're doing edits, sometimes with the type, it's easy to select something without noticing. So it's always good to zoom out, look at the whole picture, make sure you're not messing anything up. If I want, I can sample this color here, and we can take this type here and make it solid so it's 100%. And I can just, since I sampled that color, I can use the eyedropper here on my foreground swatch. I can adjust that however I want here. Like, okay, this is on screen, so I might want to make it normal. And if I were printing it, that's the way I would do this, just so it's more solid when it prints. Because when you get, let's say, direct-to-garment or direct-to-film printing, it's going to want to lay a white color down behind this. So if this is transparent, it's going to lay white down and then try to put the transparent over that, and you're not going to get the same effect as on your screen. I could also turn that into halftones, but I really don't want to do that. For now, I can just adjust the color until it looks pretty good. We're going to make sure all of these layers are back to normal instead of multiply. And then if I'm ready to print this, what I want to do is flatten everything. Then I'm going to use my magic wand tool. Anti-alias off, contiguous off. Then I'm just going to click on this background color here and then invert the selection. So Control-Shift-I or select inverse. And then I'm going to make a layer via copy, Command-J, Control-J, or layer, new, layer via copy. Then when I turn this off, then this is what I have. So I have my transparent background with my image on it. We'll put this on a mock-up just so you can see. And this is what we have on a t-shirt. So we can make any adjustments from there too. But that's basically it. There's not a whole lot to that design. It's pretty simple, just a few steps. Let me know if you have any questions or if you get stuck anywhere. And thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.